Hello everyone, this is Josephus the Scholar. In this video, I've decided to use the Iceberg format to discuss information related to the Bible. For those not familiar, the Iceberg format uses the iceberg as an allegory to discuss information regarding a certain subject. The deeper you go down on the iceberg, the more obscure and mysterious the information becomes. Let's begin. Tier 1. Theories about the Exodus. This refers to two mainstream theories that many scholars have when dating the Exodus. According to the 15th century BC dating theory, the Exodus occurred during the 15th century BC, thus making the two pharaohs from the book of Exodus being Pharaoh Thutmose III and Pharaoh Amenhotep II. The 13th century BC dating theory states that the Exodus occurred during the 13th century BC, thus making the pharaohs from the book of Exodus being Pharaoh Seti I and Pharaoh Ramses II. The Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of manuscripts that were made by a Jewish sect called the Essenes and date between the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD. They are the oldest complete copy of the Old Testament that we have, minus the Book of Esther. The Mosaic Code of Laws. The Mosaic Code of Laws are the 613 commandments given to Moses by God to form the religious and legal traditions of the Jewish people. Sexual imagery in the Song of Songs. The Song of Songs is a collection of erotic Israelite poetry which tells the story of a man and woman having sex on their wedding night. According to the Jewish interpretation of the Song of Songs, the husband is God and the wife is Israel, while the Christian tradition of the Song of Songs states that the husband is Jesus and the wife is the church. Tier 2. The Baruch Bulla. The Baruch Bulla is a clay seal that bears the name of Baruch, a scribe who served the Israelite prophet Jeremiah, and is believed to have composed the book of Jeremiah. Because the Baruch Bulla was found on the antiquities market and not at an archaeological site, there are many historians who consider the object a hoax. The Moabite Portal. The Moabite Portal is a gateway structure at the Temple of Karnak in Egypt, which bears inscriptions by Pharaoh Shishak commemorating his military campaign in Syria and the Levant. Shishak's account correlates to the Bible's account of his military campaign and conquest of various cities in Israel and Judea following the death of King Solomon. The Moabite Stone. The Moabite Stone is a stone stele, which bears an inscription from King Mesha of Moab, celebrating his victory over King Omri of Israel. The Moabite Steely, or Moabite Stone, provides extra-biblical evidence to suggest that King Omri of Israel and King Mesha of Moab were real historical figures, and also bears the first reference to Yahweh, the God of the Israelites, outside of the Bible. The Tel Dan Stele. The Tel Dan Stele is a fragmented stele which bears an inscription from a Syrian king celebrating his military victory against the king of Israel and the king of Judea. This artifact is important because it refers to the kingdom of Judea as the house of David, thus making it the first written record of David outside of the Bible. The Ivory Pomegranate. The ivory pomegranate is a small ivory ornament shaped like a pomegranate that was most likely part of a staff used by an Israelite priest, found near the Temple Mount. This small little object is possibly the last known surviving piece of Solomon's temple. Flavius Josephus. Flavius Josephus was a Jewish historian who composed The Jewish War and The Antiquity of the Jews, and he provides most of the information that we have about ancient Israel outside of what is recorded in the Bible. The Septuagint. The Septuagint is an ancient Greek translation of the Old Testament that was commissioned by Pharaoh Ptolemy III for the Great Library of Alexandria. Tier 3. The Queen of Sheba is from Ethiopia. According to Ethiopian legend, The Queen of Sheba was an Ethiopian monarch who came to visit King Solomon. She later became pregnant by him due to having a whirlwind romance, and gave birth to Menelik, the first emperor of the Ethiopians. The Queen of Sheba is from Yemen. According to the Quran and Jewish and Arabic folklore, the Queen of Sheba came from a pre-Islamic Arab kingdom located in what is now modern-day Yemen. According to the Quran, her name was Belakis, and she converted to Judaism after meeting King Solomon. The 10 plagues of Egypt relate to Egyptian deities. Many Jewish and Christian theologians have noted that the plagues of Egypt, mentioned in the book of Exodus, seem to correlate with various Egyptian deities. For example, the plague in which the Nile River turned into blood could be interpreted as God showing victory over Hapi, the Egyptian god of the Nile, and the plague of darkness could be seen as God taking victory over Ra, the Egyptian god of the sun. J-text, E-text, D-text, and P-text. This refers to 4 groups of texts that later became the formation of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, while Jewish tradition states that the Torah was composed by Moses. Recent literary analysis has revealed that there are 4 distinct sources that came together to compose the Torah, and these sources came together sometime during the Babylonian captivity. Gnosticism. Gnosticism was a heretical Christian sect that believed that the God of the Old Testament was an evil deity that was in conflict with the God of the New Testament, who was seen as the true God. A key concept of Gnosticism is the idea that by studying the teachings of Jesus, people can gain secret information necessary to look past the illusion created by the evil God, and thus reach heaven and enlightenment. The King James Version was not the first English Bible. Although the King James Version of the Bible was the first official English translation of the Bible, it wasn't the first time the Bible was translated into English. Other English versions of the Bible include the Geneva Bible, which was the version of the Bible used by Queen Elizabeth I. Tier 4. The Harabu are the Hebrew. According to the Amarna letters, which are a series of letters written by Canaanite rulers to the pharaohs of Egypt, Canaan was under constant attack from a nomadic group of bandits known as the Harabu. There are many scholars who like to correlate the Harabu with the Hebrews due to them having similar sounding names and due to the Harabu invasion of Canaan fitting with the biblical description of the Israelite conquest under Joshua. However, there is no concrete evidence that can confirm that the Harabu and the Hebrew are the same people. Jacob and Joseph were mummified. According to the book of Genesis, the Hebrew patriarchs Jacob and Joseph were mummified according to Egyptian practices. The teachings of Amenhotep and the book of Proverbs. 1/3 of the book of Proverbs is actually plagiarism and takes most of its teachings from an ancient Egyptian source called the Teachings of Amenhotep. Amenhotep was an ancient Egyptian teacher and philosopher. It's possible that many ancient Israelite teachers were influenced by Amenhotep, and his teachings found their way into the book of Proverbs. The Gospel of Judas. The Gospel of Judas is a extra-biblical gospel, which was supposedly written by Judas. According to the Gospel of Judas, Judas claims that he was told by Jesus himself to betray him to the Romans so that he could be crucified. The Gospel of Judas is a controversial work and is considered to be a Gnostic text. The Silver Scrolls. The Silver Scrolls are 2 tiny silver scrolls that were amulets found within an Iron Age tomb in Jerusalem, and they bear the oldest known written portion of the Bible. These tiny little scrolls contain a prayer from the Book of Numbers, and they date to around 900 BC. Moses was an Egyptian general. According to the Jewish historian Josephus, when Moses was living in Egypt as an Egyptian prince in the pharaoh's household, he served as an Egyptian general and led a successful military campaign against the Ethiopians. Pharaoh's heart grew hard. According to the book of Exodus, every time the Pharaoh refused to free the Jewish people from slavery, his heart grew hard. This was a reference to the ancient Egyptian belief that after an individual died, his or her heart would be weighed on a scale against the feather of Ma'at to determine if they lived a virtuous life. If their heart was too heavy with sin, they were denied entrance into the afterlife, and their heart would be fed to a demon named Amut. Tier 5. Asherah is called the wife of God. Asherah was an ancient Canaanite goddess associated with fertility and sexuality. According to various archaeological discoveries, such as the Kalut Ajud inscriptions and a temple in Arad, there were many ancient Israelites who believed that Asherah was the wife of God. Throughout the Old Testament, many Jewish prophets went around and told people not to worship the Queen of Heaven. This was one of the titles given to Asherah. Zoroastrian influenced Judaism. Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic religion that was the official religion of the Persian Empire. It is believed that during the Persian period, Judaism was heavily influenced by Zoroastrianism, and many of Zoroastrian beliefs can be seen in Jewish religious thought following the Babylonian conquest, such as the concept of heaven and hell, and the concept of a battle between the forces of good and evil. Cain's wife. Cain's wife is a mysterious figure who randomly shows up following the murder of Abel. It has been a subject of debate of who exactly Cain's wife was. Some think that Cain's wife was a woman who was randomly created by God, while others believe that Cain's wife was Cain's sister. Moses had a speaking problem. When Moses was commanded by God to speak to the Pharaoh and demand that he have the Hebrews liberated from slavery in Egypt, Moses told God that he could not speak before Pharaoh, and asked to have his brother Aaron speak for him before the Pharaoh. There are various interpretations on why Moses could not speak. According to the Talmud, Moses burnt his tongue with a hot piece of coal when he was a child, and thus had a speech impediment. Katai and Malaquia. These two Greek terms have been translated to mean homosexual in many translations of the New Testament. However, these are false equivalents. The first term, arsenokotai, literally means man of many beds, or man who hops from bed to bed, and was a term created by St. Paul. In other forms of Greek literature that uses this term could be translated as someone who was a pimp or used power to make other individuals have sex with them. Malachi, which translates to soft or effeminate, was a term used to describe male prostitutes. So, instead of translating as homosexuals in many modern English translations of the Bible, it's most likely that St. Paul was referring to pimps and male prostitutes, not male homosexuals. Noah got drunk. According to the book of Genesis, following the great flood, Noah built a vineyard, got drunk, and was found naked by his son Ham. Because Ham had shamed Noah, Noah became angry and cursed Ham's son Canaan to become the ancestors of the Canaanites who would later become slaves to the Israelites. It is unknown why Noah got mad at Ham for seeing him being naked, and some theorize that when Ham was mocking Noah, he may have been actually sexually assaulting him. Solomon controlled demons. According to two medieval texts called the Greater Key of Solomon and the Lesser Key of Solomon, King Solomon of Israel had occultic knowledge that allowed him to have control over various demons. The Israelites used marijuana. According to recent archaeological discoveries at the site of Arad, it has been discovered that the ancient Israelites used to burn marijuana on incense altars dedicated to God and other Canaanite deities such as Asherah. Tier 6. The Ark of the Covenant is in Ethiopia. According to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the Ark of the Covenant is within a church in Aksum, Ethiopia. The adulterous woman was not originally part of the Gospel of Mark. In the famous Bible story of Jesus saving an adulterous woman from being stoned to death by a group of Pharisees. Jesus tells the mob to not harm the woman, and for the man who has not sinned to cast the first stone. While this story is a famous story of Jesus' kindness and mercy on others, this story was not part of original manuscripts of the Gospel of Mark, and seems to have been added much later on, at an unknown time. Jesus and Muhammad are related. According to genealogies within the Bible and the Quran, Jesus and Muhammad are related. Jesus is a descendant of Isaac, and Muhammad is a descendant of Ishmael, both of which were sons of the Hebrew patriarch Abraham. The centurion's servant was his boyfriend. In one story from the Gospels, Jesus heals the servant of a Roman soldier or centurion. Because the centurion refers to his servant as his beloved, many have interpreted that the centurion's servant may have been his lover. Yahweh confronts other gods. Throughout the Old Testament, Yahweh, the God of Israel, has been depicted as confronting other gods, such as Baal. In Psalm 82, God is depicted as confronting the assembly of the Canaanite deities and telling them that they have failed to help their people and thus will lose their divine status. The location of Ophir. Ophir is a mysterious location where King Solomon had various gold mines. Many have speculated that Ophir was possibly somewhere in East Africa or in the Arabian Peninsula. Tier 7. David and Jonathan were a gay couple. Jonathan was the son of King Saul, and he had a close friendship with David. In the text, they're described as hugging, kissing, and telling each other that they deeply love each other. And when David received word that Jonathan was killed in battle, he composed a song called the Song of the Bow as a form of lamentation. And in the Song of the Bow, David stated that he loved Jonathan more than any woman. Some have interpreted this to mean that David and Jonathan were in a homosexual relationship. However, this has been debated by many Christian and Jewish theologians. The Egyptian Moses. According to an ancient Egyptian historian named Manetho, there was a rebel priest who lived during the Old Kingdom of ancient Egypt, who rebelled against the pharaoh and led a group of lepers and criminals into the desert and founded his own independent kingdom. Manetho says that this rebel priest later changed his name to Moses. Whether or not Manetho was giving an accurate account of history or just making a smear campaign against the Jewish prophet is unknown. God made a deal with Satan. According to the book of Job, God and Satan made a pact to see if Job would be loyal to God despite Satan's punishments, such as taking away his house, his riches, and his family. To many Christians, this is a terrifying concept, but in the original Jewish context of the story, Satan is seen as God's servant, and in the story, he is tempting and punishing Job to see if his faith in God is genuine. Q source. The Q source is a hypothetical source of oral tradition or written literature that served as the basis for the 4 canonic Gospels. Saul ruled for blank years. In the original Hebrew manuscripts of the Old Testament, it is unclear how long King Saul ruled over Israel, due to there being a literal gap in the text stating Saul ruled for blank years. In many translations of the Bible, most editors will say that he ruled for 2 or 3 years. Kabbalah. Kabbalah is a form of Jewish mysticism, which believes that by studying the laws of the Torah, the names of God, and various Jewish traditions, one can find enlightenment and improve their place in life. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I know this could get a little bit controversial, but I hope you still enjoy it and have learned something new along the way. If you enjoy this type of video, I might make some more Iceberg videos in the future. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.